idea is that we're talking about for our four aspects of self, for the self-portrait assignment. And some people were asking a little bit more about form, because last time I talked about this sort of idea of broken apart form for the idea of an interior or internal space or internal perception of self, and a landscape, or sort of a more united aesthetic, a seamless aesthetic as a style to present the exterior view of ourselves. Then we're talking about the idea of history, and also the idea of sort of our future. And I got thinking about this a little more, and I was thinking about methods of composition, how people physically fill rectangles of space with images. And this is not a new conundrum. You know, painters had big blank canvases that they'd have to fill. And they'd spend a lot of time figuring out what is going to go where. You know, sketch things and sort of draw, lay them in, and maybe paint them lightly and see how you like it, and rearrange things. Painters constantly reworking to create compositions. And so paintings are actually, especially good paintings, are great places to look for compositional ideas. How to fill the rectangle. What are you going to put inside your space? And I just want to reiterate that there's no such thing as stealing or plagiarism in fine art, right? You should steal and steal well. Ideas are free for the taking and sharing. When you see a great piece of work, you just say, wow, you know, what can I do with that idea? So, for example, let me just back up for 1 second here, sorry. The 4 styles that I want to talk about today are sort of portrait, the idea of our sort of self-perception, you know, what you see in the mirror. When you see yourself in the mirror, you're often framed quite closely, right? And that's the sort of structure of a portrait. A rectangle filled with a person and a little bit of space around them. The idea of the landscape, where you have a rectangle filled with space, basically. Whether the space goes on for a long distance or whether there's buildings in it, what we're doing is looking at a space. There might be people in it. Then we have the idea of painting interiors. Interior spaces where you have walls confining things, ceilings, and it's very sort of, oh wait, I'm sorry. So the landscape is our exterior self. The interior, I was thinking of more as sort of this, the home, the idea of past and family and that sort of idea of, or that aspect of the self, our view of ourselves via our past as interior space. And then there's abstract compositions, right? We don't have to attach our compositions to anything having to do with reality at all. That's just a very convenient way to structure things so that people can enter into your work visually and understand what they're looking at. But you could toss those conventions aside and create a composition made of just forms, or ignoring the ideas of perspective and making things very flat and geometric, or just flat. And we'll talk about some abstract compositions and ideas. Okay, so I'm going to turn off lights, because this is really late. Should I close the shade too? The first picture I'm showing you is a painting by a man named Marcel Duchamp. He took this famous painting called the Mona Lisa, painted by Leonardo da Vinci, right? Am I right? Did I make that up too? It really is by Marcel Duchamp. I forget the exact date of this, but sometime around 1915, 1916, this idea of surrealism and Dada, sort of wackiness is being created really by Duchamp and talking about the idea of appropriation. Here, Duchamp takes a postcard of the Mona Lisa, draws a mustache and a beard on it, and titles it, anybody speak French? Because I don't. It's going to be embarrassing to mispronounce this name. But it's the letter L in French is, what? Help me out here, people. You can put it into Google Translate. Anyway, when you type LHOOQ, the lady, it stood for something like the lady with the added mustache, but when you sound it out phonetically, the letters sound like urinal in French, which is a very famous piece of Marcel Duchamp's. He took a urinal and placed it on a pedestal and said, "This is art." Still controversial to this day. Anyway, Duchamp's take on portrait. Andy Warhol, American artist, very much about pop culture and the use of pop culture imagery within art and reproducibility, the reproduction of things, the variation of things. This is a very famous image of the actress Marilyn Monroe with a number of variations, right? But these are classic portraits, right? Just sort of like very close up. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a portrait. How do you structure this space? Classically, you have sort of a bust, right? This is like looking in a mirror. Behind there's some landscape but other things. But really what you're talking about is this sort of mirror perception or portrait, if you will. So a landscape can include figures. But instead of it being mostly the figure, here you have mostly the space around the figure and just a little bit of space occupied by the subject, if you will. Does everybody know this painting? It's called The Scream by Edward Munch. 3 copies of it were painted over 6 years or so, and one is going up for auction, I think next week, by like the nephew of the guy who washed his brushes or something wonderful like that. And the expected price, has everybody heard this? This is old news. What was the guess?
I would say $1 billion to myself.
Close. I mean, 80 million is what they're talking about for painting. It's much smaller than this too. It's on cardboard. Anyway, so that's been in the news. Here we have, I think this is the reception of St. Anyway, here's a medieval painting. Landscape, very different style. Instead of having this perspective going into the distance, here we have some actions, maybe some smaller figures, maybe some smaller figures further up, sort of trying to convey the sense of space, but kind of awkwardly. It's still beautiful, still captivating. The idea of being sort of photorealistic or realistic with perspective is something that you can do. It's also something you can dispose of. It's been disposed. It's a relatively new convention, actually. Here's an etching of a treaty in the 1860s. And this is a very classic sort of landscape, except for the fact that it's within the woods, right? So this landscape, and instead of mountains and sky, you can have a very filled space. So landscapes can be very open or quite filled with the objects in the landscape. And the trees in this etching are crowded in very much like the people underneath the trees. It really gives a sense of how many people were there and how important it was. And just to reiterate, this idea of sort of open or closed space, this painting by De Chirico uses our perception of perspective in order to throw off our sense of space, our sense of reality, and by doing so, creates a landscape that's surreal. right? It's very dreamlike. Not only is the perspective weird, which makes us feel like we're not grounded, we're not in this physical plane, but there's this very sort of dreamlike image of a girl running and hitting this hoop, and this sort of creepy big shadow looming out from behind that wall. And that's kind of all there is. It's very symbolic, right? You have an empty, what looks like horse trailer, and then this set of arches that just sort of goes on and on. So that's exterior spaces, landscapes. The idea of how we see ourselves in the world. Now the interior, and I'm showing you sort of images that sort of push back and forth in these boundaries, because honestly these boundaries I came up with and are arbitrary in a way, just to sort of give you a sense of structure for this assignment. The interior space, when portrayed in paintings, often has that same sense that we saw in that landscape etching of the meeting in the woods, where things are sort of crowded close to the viewing plane. So we have this wall here. This is Socrates on his deathbed drinking hemlock. Is this Caravaggio? Anybody have art history? I'll cut that from the tape if I'm wrong. Anyway, beautiful rendering of this sort of dungeon-like space, the detail to this empty space, only serving to bring our eye to all the crowding and action going on here, with these connections happening and this sort of groupings, and all of that really serves to bring our eye to the main character in the middle of this painting. It's not perfectly in the middle though, right? Right in the middle is empty space in this cup of hemlock, which is about to drink. But we do also have this space going back. It does end. Think about how you want to fill your spaces. Do you want to have walls, or do you want to have horizons? It's your choice. Here's another famous painting that has very interesting depth. Right here we have a sort of a group of characters together once again. Look at the space once again around the central character, and then you have some more people. Perspective going back with that open door. This is a very famous painting by this painter, Velázquez. It's called Las Meninas, and it's a masterpiece. You go to Madrid and see this thing, and it's stunning in every sense of the word. And why is it so stunning? I think because of the way that he rendered space so openly, but then really brought our eyes to this crowded space. Also, look at all these paintings. It's sort of a wonderful allegory of history. Interior spaces as history, as places to store things and keep things. You could decorate a space that you're creating. Why just leave a blank wall when you could put pictures within your picture? That's a great way to collage things if you're interested. And interior spaces don't have to be rendered realistically. This is a pool table within a French cafe, painted by a painter named Vincent van Gogh, or Van Gogh. Those Dutch with their funny names. Van Gogh, Vincent van Gogh. But here we do have ample space around each grouping of people, right? Very different sense. Very different sense of perspective and space that Van Gogh is rendering there. How would you fill a space? This is one other answer. You can sort of leave big empty spaces and sort of place things around to create a room. That's what he did. Put some paintings on the walls, hung some lights. The interior can also be quite lonely. If it's just one person, you'll find yourself really getting a sense of like the individual sort of without connection in the world, sort of stuck within their own space. This is a painting by Edward Hopper, American painter, most famous for this painting called Nighthawks, which is very much about that same sense of loneliness inside. It's kind of a real interesting one compositionally, because if you think about this in terms of the sort of designations I set up as far as interior, exterior, portrait, abstract, this is both an interior and an exterior composition, right? We're looking into this restaurant space where you have 3 patrons and what looks like somebody who works there, and then just empty space all around. He totally made this up. It's not a real place. Sort of based on places in, I guess, Greenwich Village. But it's extremely powerful in a way because we are able to really get a sense of the space around, And why am I going on and on about grouping and spaces? The more you leave empty space between groups of things, the more comfortable viewers will be looking from group to group and sort of reading your image. If you have lots of crowded things together, and in a way, this isn't always true, because here we have lots of crowded things together, but not really, right? I mean, sort of visually, this is this is all up here, this is our empty space. But it's being occupied anyway, in a wonderful way, which is why it's such a complex and wonderful painting. Why does this feel empty up there? Why does this feel so crowded up here? This is lighter, right? Our eyes go here. This is darker. Things are kind of blurred a little bit in order to bring our eyes to the crisp rendering of the front. So there's a number of conventions that you can use to set up space and direct your viewers' eyes around realistic spaces. Once we're talking about abstraction, the idea of space is one of applying material to a plane. The abstract modernist idea is that by working with paint or, in this case, paper, we are only trying to describe it in its essence, the paint, the canvas, and the paper. And in such, they kind of made hard to look at images. I'm showing you some of the most pleasant, sort of abstract and modern paintings. There's not much there in a lot of abstract work. In some abstract work, some of which I'm going to show you today, there's a lot going on, right? And here we have this plane of paper cut out, different sort of cabbage-like or seaweed-like or coral-like shapes, along with what looks like fruit or little hearts or something, scattered about. Very much a pattern, very much just a surface with an application. Did I show you guys this earlier this semester?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Hopefully everybody's seen this. That one, by the way, the first one is by Matisse, who also did this painting, where we have figures, right? This is a description of something, but the fact that they are sort of on this obviously not realistically rendered space really brings us to consider them as form. And what are these forms? It's basically the same thing we're just looking at in those cutouts, right? So if you look in between their arms, you get these beautiful shapes being formed. Very much like these shapes, I think. So the idea of creating a surface that's sort of there for you to just array whatever it is that you're thinking or feeling on sort of in a non-realistic way. Hannah, I showed you last week, Hannah Hoch's Cut with a Kitchen Knife series, where she sort of had newsprint just sort of arrayed over a piece of paper. Does everybody remember that? People who were here last week? If you didn't, you can watch it. This is a painting by a painter named Pablo Picasso. And the painting was called the Guernica. And what this painting is about the firebombing by the Nazis of a town in, or city really, in Spain called Guernica. And this is a memorial for that blitzkrieg. You know, the Nazis were practicing their blitzkrieg techniques during the Spanish Civil War. Because of their backing, Franco came to power. If anybody knows Spanish, as we'll go back there. So this is the sort of end of a democratic reign where sort of there's political tumult. There's this symbol of Spain as a horse being sort of very much in pain, gored by, there's a bull right here, and this just very intense emotional quality that can only be really conveyed, I think, when you let go of the need to bind an image to visual reality or perceptual reality as we see it with perspective and other common forms. So here we have really that sense of Matisse's shapes, right? These sort of cutouts, if you will, right? Put together into something meaningful. Structurally, what's he doing here? He's taking a lot of components and putting them together, moving them around, giving them space, right? And also playing with that space. Look at these beautiful descriptions of lines that sort of traverse these spaces, uniting them and breaking them up. Very painful looking. The way he sort of puts in these abstract forms to further rend what's already an abstracted rendering of a person. And this is not how eyes look, right? People's eyes are not like that on their face, but you can read that as a person, looking pretty upset. You know. So, 20 minutes. That's what I wanted to show you as far as different compositional ideas. Different compositional ideas that you should, if you're feeling stuck, look to for inspiration while making this project. Okay? I'm going to post a link to this right now to our class page on Evernote. But before I do that, what I'd like to do is talk about a few new techniques in Photoshop to incorporate into your work this week, and then give you time to work. I'll make sure the printer's working also. We are going to be printing 11 by 17. I'll make sure we have paper also. Printing 11 by 17, I'll show you how to set up print jobs when you get there, okay? So I don't want you just sort of sending off things and being like, oh no, I sent 4 copies and wasted a lot of time. This does actually use a lot of material. We're printing this large. Okay. Any questions about any of this before I just sort of move on? I went through a bunch of stuff here. And before I even move on, I'm just going to, once again, just scroll through really quickly and let people ask questions about things if they want. So, portraits, idea of portrait, the idea of landscape, the idea of interiors, and abstractions. Okay, so that's all I was showing you today. Any questions about any of that? Any ideas? Any? Okay. So it's all up on our class site. Now, what I'd like to do is quickly So let me just show you basically three things today. What I'm going to show you is last class we went over the healing brush tool and the patch tool as ways of modifying portions of our image, of sort of removing things that we didn't want. Those are sort of intelligent tools that would sort of run algorithms on our command and interpret our command. So they didn't work exactly the same every time. There's another tool called the clone stamp tool, which is really what you use when you want to remove things from an image, when you want to wash things out by replacing it with a background. So I'm going to show you that tool today. I want to show you how to make what's called a clipping mask. A clipping mask is when you make a mask using a shape of a layer, or the shape of a shape, like a rectangle or a circle, and I'll show you how to do that. And the last thing I want to show you is gradients within layer masks, which gives you interesting ways of making good transitions in your layers. Okay? So we're going to just quickly go through those three things. I'm going to quickly go through those three things. And then I am going to show you, I mean, I sort of hesitated as I got started here because I realized that I want to show you one more piece of work by a contemporary artist who works with the tools I'm about to show you. So I'm going to show you the tools first, and then the art, and then you'll have lab time until the end of class. Okay? Questions? Maybe I have to go to the bathroom before I start this next session. It's going to be 20 minutes. Okay? Okay. So let's talk about how to use the clone stamp tool. The first thing you want to do, of course, is have something open in Photoshop. Apologies for not having something open in Photoshop. Here we go. Let's, so I have this open in Photoshop. Yeah, it's a picture of a guy. I'm thinking, wouldn't it be neat if I sort of removed the text here and replaced it with something else, right? That's something you can imagine wanting to do with a picture. So the first thing you always want to do before using any tools that manipulate the pixels in your image is make a duplicate layer. Whenever you use a filter, you make a duplicate layer. Whenever you use the healing brush tool or anything, you want to make a duplicate layer. I don't want to work directly in my background. I want to leave that there as a reference point. So, make a duplicate layer. Go to, oh, you can't really see my pen. That's not going to work ever. It's just going to fall down really well. No, it doesn't really work. It's kind of like the drift up there. Anyway, you can sort of read it now, though, right? The menu bar up top. So you see where my mouse pointer is? Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to duplicate the layer. How do you make a duplicate layer? You go to Layer, Duplicate Layer. And now I have background and background copy. I'm going to use my clone stamp tool on my background copy layer. My background layer is there in case I mess up or in case I want to go back to it. Clone stamp tool is right here below your brush tool, right? So this, at this point, we've used this set of tools, we've started brushes. Clone stamp tool, the way clone stamp tool works is it is a brush, but instead of brushing with a color, it's brushing pixels from one area over to another area. So let me show you. In order to select the area that you're pulling the pixels from, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. In order to, in order to tell the computer where you want to pull the pixels from, you need to create what's called a target. And the way you select your target point is by holding down the Alt or Option button on your keyboard. And watch my mouse pointer as I do this. See how my mouse pointer changes from my brush size to this target shape? That's telling me I'm about to set a sample point. So I'm going to set a sample point by targeting over there, and now I let go. So all I did was hold down an option, click, and then let go of option. And now watch, when I move my brush over up here, look, it's showing me what I'm going to paint. You see how I haven't clicked or anything. It's just showing me that's what's loaded up in my brush. Those are the pixels that I'll lay down when I click. So, you know, it hasn't done anything. I'm just sort of moving this around, seeing where it'll look good. So I'm going to actually just start right here and give it a nice little brush up a little bit. See what happened right there? How the T started coming back? If I overlap, here, I'll show you right here. Let's go down. If I overlap onto what I'm trying to get rid of, I'll just replicate it. Watch. See, watch my mouse pointer, my brush is loaded up here with cardboard, right? I sampled up here. And I come down here with my brush. I'm like, oh, let me just brush out the whole O down here. I start brushing. I'm not brushing right now. But if I were to brush, I'm going to brush right now. Let me brush and demonstrate bad brushing. I'm brushing. If you look where my original source point is, you can see there's a crosshair. There's a little plus up there. Can you see it moving back and forth? Okay, good. So once that moves on to where the top of the O originally was, it's going to be sampling that and putting those pixels down, right? You see how the O is coming up into my brush right there, and I'm just sort of shifting it down. You need to repeatedly reset your sample point when using the clone stamp. You need to, how did that happen? You need to continuously retarget. So you always keep one hand on your Alt button when you're using the clone stamp tool. So I'm going to set a point there. Oh, that looks good. That looks good. I'm going to set a new point here. That looks good. I'm going to set a point over here. Brush out a little bit of that. Oh, look at this. Do you see that weird, yeah, this little sort of imperfection there? I replicated it, and now it's it's standing out. It looks fake. Watch out for imperfections being repeated when using the clone stamp tool. In fact, Iran, not too long ago, had a propaganda thing about launching, missiles or medium-range missiles, or whatever, and they were trying to do a coordinated launch of 4 missiles, but only 3 actually launched, and they photoshopped the 4th one in, but they did such a bad job with the vapor trail, with the smoke coming out of the back of it. They just sort of duplicated with clone stamp the sort of the smoke of the rocket next to it, basically. Everybody could tell that it was faked, and they did not get the propaganda push that they had hoped out of showing that kind of picture, trying to scaremonger people.
Couldn't you make the brush bigger? Like so it
I can, but honestly, if I were to make the brush bigger, it would overlap much more of the things around. So if I had my brush that size, see how the bottom of the top of the O is showing up?
Yeah.
So I need to have it smaller so I'm not sampling things that I don't want. And you really do want to use a pretty small brush when you're clone stamping. You're manipulating pixels. That's what you really want to think about, is sort of matching pixels and manipulating the pixel level, pixel by pixel, where changing areas here. So, is this tedious?
Yes.
Absolutely. Is this why photoshopping takes a long time? Absolutely. Does painting take a long time?
Yes.
Absolutely. Does drawing take a long time? Does making music take a long time? Absolutely. So this is the sort of slow craft part, if you will, of Photoshop. The clone stamp tool is your piano practice, right? So as you can see, I'm sort of slowly going around this.
That's awesome.
So here's what my result is so far. That was the original, right? So you can just sort of see that I'm going and replacing the areas where want to have the letters with cardboard. Now, let me just show you something. I'm just going to make another copy of this really fast. Let's say, oh, why don't I just use a brush tool, right? Why can't I just sample this color? Here's my color sample tool. Why can't I just sample this cardboard color and brush it in?
This is just one flat color.
Yeah, it's a flat color. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I'm going to delete that. Okay, so, clone stamp tool. Clone stamp tool, you use the Alt button to set your target, and then you brush. And then reset your target using the Alt button. Over and over and over. Okay? That's how you use the clone stamp tool. The second tool I wanted to show you today, let me just bring up another picture into this. This one? Yeah. So I just brought this picture in, right? And what I'm thinking is I'm going to have him in the sign instead of the sign. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to sort of change my opacity here for a second so I can see through, right? I'm now going to select that layer and maybe make it a little smaller. Up a little bit here. Okay. So now I can see, let me show you what I was just doing. You couldn't see in the back. I was just positioning this layer. Oops, I was just positioning this layer behind this background copy layer, which has an opacity dropped down to something where I can see through it. So I was hoping to just get rid of this sign and have this guy show through. Okay. So to do that, what you can do is make a shape, or and we also used all these tools, right? Magnetic lasso tool and stuff. This might be something to make with. Magnetic lasso tool might work well with, maybe not. And now, what I want to do is make what's called a clipping mask. The clipping mask is basically creating, that's not how to do it. I need to make a new layer. I'm sorry. I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste, and now I have a new layer that's just what I want to get rid of. Okay, that is not a clipping mask. I did this a really silly way, and I'm sort of embarrassed to have it on camera. Can I just tell you what I did in the first place, to tell you what my error was right now? It's a very funny error that kind of worked, because it did what I wanted, what I said I was going to do, but it didn't do it in the way that I want to demonstrate. Okay, so let me show you what I did. So you know what I did, but then let me show you what I wanted to show you. Okay.
Basically, you just selected the layer and copied it and then put it on top of it.
Yeah, what I did was I made a selection using this layer, right? Sort of quickly grabbing this area of the sign. That's a pretty bad selection this time. And then, instead of making the selection, or copying the selection from the background copy layer, I selected that area of layer 1 and just said edit, copy, and then edit, paste, and it comes on top. Right? I was just sort of copying and pasting using my selection. That's what we were doing last class a lot, right? We were sort of using our selection tool, Okay. So that's nice and all. It's a nice way to go about things. Honestly, I might not want this exact position of him. I really want to cut through the background copy layer and show all of layer 1. So what I'm going to do is turn layer 3 into a clipping mask. A clipping mask uses the edge of whatever layer you have. It's going to use this to cut a hole of invisibility through the layer underneath it. And the layer underneath it is background copy. So I go to layer, create clipping mask, and so now what we're seeing, hopefully, oh, when things don't work, they don't work in droves, don't they? I demonstrate a different way. Let me show you a clipping mask made easy. We all used the rectangle tool before, right? So here, I'm just going to make a rectangle. I'm going to rotate it around a little bit, and now I'm going to, with this shape 1 layer, I'm going to create a clipping mask, which is totally backwards. Why am I having such trouble here? Thank you, computer, for making me completely embarrassed. Give me 1 second. Image. Okay, so here's what we have. We have a shape. Anything within that shape is going to be contained within the clipping mask. When you have a shape that's like this, what's going to happen is when you create a clipping mask with it, go to layer, clipping mask, create clipping mask. It okay, here we go. You need the picture on top of the shape that you're using to clip. And that's why I've been having the problem this whole time. Here we go. Let me fix this right now. So you go to layer, you say create clipping mask, and you have whatever's within the boundaries of that layer clip. So I kind of did this totally backwards. How would I do that better? Sorry to have you witness my struggles, but it's interesting to see, honestly, I think, how somebody with knowledge of Photoshop can be stymied by some unfamiliar tools. What am I doing? I'm doing a little trial and error. I'm trying to figure out which layer is supposed to be on top here in order to create a clipping mask of the section that I want. And I realized that for some reason, and I'm very familiar with clipping masks in Adobe Illustrator, and it sort of works the opposite way, so I'm just sort of surprised. Here, if I want to just have this part missing in Photoshop here, what I need to do is create a layer that has content everywhere else, put it underneath this layer, and then create a clipping mask. So that this part is the only thing removed. Let me show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to add content to it with the brush. Everywhere except for what I want to clip. So really, I'm creating a mask in a different way. Now, why would I be doing this with a brush tool? Honestly, this is sort of a silly way to be going about this, but I'm just sort of demonstrating this. Let me show you another way to use clipping mask for real after this. So here I took that layer 4, pulled it down behind background copy. I'm going to go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask, and now, finally, we're seeing through, let me get rid of layer 3 here, we're seeing through background copy to layer 1, right? Here I have this guy here, he's repositionable now. I could make him larger or smaller. Instead of having cut him out, I cut out the hole to show him through it. I can also come here to layer 4, hopefully, and by using a brush tool or an eraser tool, this is the only time when you use the eraser tool, sort of revise the clipping mask by brushing on or erasing on layer 4. Let me demonstrate again, please. Okay. I'm going to grab just 2 new images just to clear the slate here. This has been a sadly horrific demonstration of that picture. So let's clear the slate. We're going to take this picture. This picture, and I'm going to select all, copy, I'm going to go back to this one, and paste it on. And what I'd like to do is see through layer 1 to the background, and I want to punch out some text. I'm going to type, we've used the type tool, right? I'm going to type in a kind of bold font face here. Large, I'm going to call this OWS, right? And that's what this was pictures of. And I'm going to make this real big. And you'll see that this layer dragged beneath the layer you want to clip will create the mask that when you hit the Create Clipping Mask command will cut out. Do you see what happened? Let me get rid of the background so it's clear. I typed, I dragged it beneath the layer, I dragged my type layer beneath the layer I want to crop or clip, and now I go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. Sorry. Make sure layer 1 is selected, the layer you want to clip is selected. Go to Layer, Layer, Create Clipping Mask. Okay. So now we punched out in a very sort of controlled way portions of our layer. And this is a very flexible way of working, right? I could relocate what's within my visible section, which is different than a layer mask. Your layer mask and your layer are often locked together, right? You can unlock them, honestly. Right? Okay, oops. Okay, any questions about that? Might have been the worst explanation I've done all semester, right? I'm glad everybody's nodding their heads in agreement with that. Okay, let's see if I can top that. So, so we're talking about clipping masks. Let's talk about one last way of masking, which is using a layer mask, but in a new way. Remember how we have a layer mask when we, I'm going to put one more picture in this. So here's a new layer that I just put on top of this layer. Okay. And I want to have it so that she sort of transitions with a fade out onto the other layers. And the easiest way to do that is we make a good old layer mask, right? Here's our layer mask button, add layer mask down here. And instead of using brushes, black and white brushes on our layer mask, what we're going to use is a gradient fill. So you come to your paint bucket, go to your gradient tool, and then if you look at the property bar for your gradient tool, you'll have a number of different kinds of gradients that are available. A linear gradient will create, let me just demonstrate on a blank layer for 1 second what these gradients look like. So a linear gradient gives you something that looks like that, okay? A radial gradient is something that looks like this, right? And then we have, what's that called? That's called angle. This is like linear, but reflected linear, they call it reflected gradient. Then you have a diamond gradient. And each of these will create a different layer mask, right? Because think about this being the black brush. Here we're laying down a big black brushing very easily to show through. So here in our images, here we are, I might want to use something like this on here to show everything through except for her. You see what I did? This is white in the middle and black on the outside. If I didn't know which way to go, I could trial and error it. Oh, let's see what happens if I do this, if I do this, what's showing up, what's showing up. One thing you do is hide the rest of your layers and see which sort of mouse drag will get your content in that. So that's the reflected gradient that I'm using. Is one of the ones I like most. You could use a radial gradient here to create this circle of fade out around here, and it's quite effective, right? It's a quick way to put things together using gradients. Here's the diamond gradient. Right? So these are ways to put collages together in complex manners that are quite precise. So I showed you, what did I show you first? Not the clipping mask. There's something before that, right? Clone stamp. That's right. So you have clone stamps that lets you remove things. The clipping mask lets you sort of define very precise shapes in your images to punch out, and as does use of the gradient tool in a layer mask. Okay? I said I wanted to show you one artist, and I'm going to do that before I turn the rest of the class time over to lab time. What I'd like to do is just take 1 second here to pull it up. If my browser works, which it's not. 1 second here. So I'm about to show you work by an artist who uses the clone stamp tool in order to remove parts of famous videos, mostly sports events, that create a very different sense of what's going on. Of memory, in a sense. What he does is he'll, for example, he removed the boxers from the Muhammad Ali, like George Foreman boxing match. By using the clone stamp tool, he went into each frame of the video and removed the boxers. Painting them over with images from the crowd. But because it wasn't perfect, you got this very ghostly, strange effect. Anybody see this movie? It's old, right? I know this movie. There's a movie called Predator. Alien vs. Predator was one of the series. Anyway, there's a special effect in that movie where this alien, maybe it's Alien, No, the Predator's one that goes
Arnold Schwarzenegger in it?
invisible. Yeah.
Predator.
Yeah. So there's this invisible creature, but it's shown somehow in the movie, sort of warping space around it a little bit. Okay. So here we are, finally. Hopefully, Paul Pfeiffer showing us his work in sort of creating invisibility. The other thing that he does that's very interesting is removes all the letters and numbers visible in sports shots. So often when you're watching a basketball game, there's numbers on the people's backs, right, and team names. And what he does is he removes those completely, so it becomes just this sort of flowing jerseys and very anonymous bodies in motion. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to find this on YouTube. Maybe that'll work better than PBS. Okay, so here we are.
So
here's
I
that
decided
video
to try to
coverage.
do another piece, the long count pieces that capitalize a bit more on this quality.
So you see that? See that sort of ghostliness moving around?
That's what I think of in a way as craft. You know, building a relationship to the material, discovering the things that it will do despite your will, that may end up being more interesting than what you were trying to will the material to do.
And here
I
he
would
is
happily
working
sit in my room
on basketball
and do this work all day.
removing.
It's a bit like meditation. I also feel like it's a bit like painting or drawing, in the sense that you leave your everyday kind of consciousness of the world and achieve a certain kind of focus.
Let me just show one other clip of Paul Pfeiffer's work, which is Paul Pfeiffer wrote this. Well, that's a pretty bad version of it, but there's oh, it's pretty terrible. I can't find more. There's a number of different interesting things that you could do by eliminating portions of your image, by collaging things together. We've already explored that, but in a way, it's interesting what Paul Pfeiffer was saying about how your expectations of what you want to do are often thwarted or stymied by the technology at hand, but that sort of point of diverging from your idea to what's ending up in your work is a real interesting one. And to sort of think about how that's affecting what images you're making, and then to respond to that and maybe accentuate that if you can. You know, keep repeating the things that you're finding to be not doing what you expect. Repeat mistakes, and when you keep repeating mistakes, it actually becomes a style, right? Okay? So that's it for my talking today. There's a lot of talking, okay? It's 3 o'clock. You have until basically 6 o'clock, right? Class ends at 5:50, so you have 3 hours today to work on these images. Next class, we are going to put them on the wall, okay?
Wait.
Next class, we're looking at these. These are due next class. Right, we started them last class, we're working on them today, and then next class, we're going to have a group critique where we also look at the wall. We're not going to sit around in a circle. Okay? Any questions? I'll come around and help individually with individual questions.